All right. So I've never done this before. I'm going to make a clock. And I'm hoping this is, yep, this is creative. I've never made one of these clocks before, but I have good faith in my talents and skills to make a clock. Now, the kind of clock that I want to make here is one that synchronizes to the sun. However, it's not going to be based on the sun's angle. What it's going to do, it's going to time the it's going to time the day and count how many tick marks it takes to complete one day. And based off of that number of tick marks, it will internally change some parameters and synchronize to the sunrise and sunset. So let's go ahead and get started. Guess I can put this here. Just want a basic platform, nothing fancy. I am going to post my link in Discord. All right, since it gets black at night, I do want to make myself a portable light. Let's get some stairs here to make things easy for us. All right. So I'm just going to build the clock right here. So we will need a computer. And this is to program the IC10. Also need IC10. And it's not called IC10, it's called Integrated Circuit. And we need a housing. And it's not called housing. It's called Item Kit Logic Circuit. And we're going to use an RTG. It's a creative mode item. Let's just put it there. No, that's not good. Now, I do need some displays. They're not called displays, they're called consoles. The question is, do I want a big one or a small one? Now, since we are going to be synchronizing the clock to the game days, there should be 24 hours in a day, but the hours in this game is much shorter than real hours. So I'm going to, I guess I could skip the minutes, or no, skip the seconds. We'll keep the hours and the minutes. So we'll have two displays, one for minutes and the other for seconds. Now, I also need a sensor because we do want to detect the position of the sun. I don't care so much about the position of the sun itself. I only care about the cycles of the sun. I want to be able to detect when the sun resets. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the daylight sensor in horizontal mode. And as far as I know, the daylight sensor in horizontal mode, it detects the sun between negative 180 degrees and 180 degrees. And I'm going to exploit that. My code is going to detect when there is a sudden change in polarity. And that sudden change will mark either the sunrise, the sunset, or possibly midnight or midday. And I think what I want to do is make it detect midnight. And as far as I understand, when the sun is towards the port of the daylight sensor, it reads it as negative 180 or 180 degrees. Give me a second. Let me check that. Yeah. That's right. Okay. So it will go from negative 180 to 180. Or rather, it will start as 180 degrees and it'll count down to negative 180. So at midnight, I want the sudden polarity flip at midnight. We have to think about where is the sun located at midnight. So right now I'm facing east, and the sun drifts up over the southern sky, and it sets in the west. And then at midnight, it's towards the north. So we want the daylight sensor, the port, facing north. And so as soon as it hits midnight, our daylight sensor is going to flip its angle from 180 degrees to negative 180 degrees. There'll be a sudden negative drop, and I want to detect that. The last thing we need is a programmable chip here. Motherboard, programmable chip. I don't want most of this stuff. I do want my label maker. Let's call this one hours. And call this one minutes. Let's make this the daylight sensor. We'll make D1 the hours and D2 the minutes. And before I forget, I need to save this. Let's call it 24-hour clock. Okay, now I need to verify that my daylight sensor is facing the right direction. At midday, I should have 0 degrees on my daylight sensor. Let's give this a name, 24-hour clock by Sunraiser. Let's give some labels to our devices. Let's create an initialization. This will be run one time, but it will not be looped. We want to change the sensor to mode equals 1. And that will make it horizontal. Let's go ahead and export that. And you can see that it is reading horizontal. So we're at 82 degrees. This should be counting down towards 0. At noon, it will say 0. Now, the reason why I'm not converting the solar angle into hours and minutes is because the sun may be tilted. In the case on Mars, it's tilted. And so these degrees, these horizontal degrees, it's not circular. It's more like elliptical, because the sun's path is elliptical if you look at the horizontal path. Anyhow, we got that part right. Now we want to create a sensor to detect, not a sensor, we want to create a trigger that triggers when the polarity suddenly changes from negative 180 to 180. And the easiest way to pick that up is knowing that our angle is counting down, right? And so what we want to do is record our angle every tick mark and compare it to the previous tick mark. So let's create some more labels. Let's say current tick, call that R0. And alias is previous tick, call this R1. So we have our current tick and we have our previous tick. Now we want to begin a loop here, and we will jump back to the beginning of the loop at the end. You do need to, oh my god, this is finicky. God. Okay, you want to yield. Yield is 1 tick mark. So we want to set up some initial values. I believe it's move R0, 0, move R1, 0. So this is how we initialize numbers, or sorry, this is how we initialize our registers. And at the beginning of every loop, we want to record our tick mark. Now, that means we actually need to create some ticks. Let's actually call this R2, and that's R1. Let's call this clock. So this is not a real clock, this is just our tick marks. Or we can say ticks. Alright, I need to change one thing here. Too much glare. So I'm going to make this all black around me. Alright, that should be good. So at the end of every loop, we want to modify tick marks. So we do this, do add R0 is equal to R0 plus 1. This will continually count up. Now let's do some comparison. We will set our previous, our current tick mark to the previous. Yeah, so we do it this way. R1 is the previous, is equal to R2. Now we can actually, we actually don't need this. Not yet, at least. So our current tick is what's going to keep updating. And then we will look at, okay. Okay, so we have to perform some actions here on this line. Between line 15 and line 19, we have to perform actions, and at the end of our actions, then we update our previous tick mark. We're going to store our current into our previous and then update our current for the next loop. But we put our increment down here because we want to start at tick 0. But it really doesn't matter because we're eventually going to start synchronizing. So what we can do here is we can record a value when the sun changes, right? So you can store a value here, say midnight tick, R3. So when it hits midnight, what was our tick value? That's what I want to look at. And we can actually display that. So we'll set our, we'll use our minute for now. Minutes, where is it, minute? Minute would be equal to midnight tick. Also, we want to run certain actions Oh my god, I think I'm doing this all wrong. I forgot to include the solar angle itself. Silly me. So let's create a couple aliases. Let's call this previous angle, call it R4. Current angle is R5 because we want to detect midnight. So we don't care about this midnight tick. That's bad stuff. All right. So over here we're going to read. Let's see here. We're going to, I think it's LS. Or is it L? L. We want to load R5 R5 with sensor solar angle. There we go. I don't really need all these ticks. This is all crap. Sorry about that. Only care about our previous and current angle. That's what I care about. And I don't need to update that. Put this in R2. So we load R2 with the sensor solar angle. We can do the ticks a little bit later. Right now we just want to detect midnight. And we want to display something that tells us we just hit midnight. So let's see here. All right. Let's look at our library real quick. So our angle only changes positive at midnight. So we want to look for this one here, BGT. Or rather, it's less than or equal to, then we'll skip. So let's name this line update. So BLE, we're going to branch to update if A is less than or equal to B. And so in other words, if our current angle is less than our previous angle, then we'll branch to update. So we're going to skip this line here. And then afterwards we will update. Right? So here is where we update this is where we display. It's just temporary. We're going to display our current tick mark. We can actually use R0 here. We also want to increment R0. So R0 is our clocking signal, and it's going to keep counting up. And every time midnight hits, we also want it to reset. And so this way we can keep track of how many tick marks exists in a day. So let's see if this works. I have no idea where is midnight. Or sorry, I have no idea where is the sun. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continually update hour. There we go. So this is just temporary. We're just displaying the horizontal angle of the sun. So we're heading towards 90 degrees, and that's 90 degrees relative to the port, or no, sorry, relative to the top of the sensor. And so I want to say that the sun is going to come up soon. So it's going to be quite a while before we hit midnight. Eventually this will display hour and this will display the minute in game time. So while waiting for the sun, I will give you a quick review. We have a sensor which detects the angle of the sun in the horizontal direction. We have our two displays, hour and minute. We have an internal clock, which I call tick. And this just keeps ticking up and up and up indefinitely. And then I'm keeping track of the sun's angle in its previous angle. This is initialization. This sets the sensor to mode 1, which measures horizontal. And then at the beginning of my loop, I'm going to read the solar angle and store the value into R2. Then I'm going to display that in my excuse me, in the hour console. And then this is a conditional statement here. We're going to branch down to update if R2 is less than R1. In other words, if our current angle is less than our previous angle. Otherwise, we're going to update our minute and show what our tick mark is. And we're also going to reset our tick mark to 0. And then we will update our registers. Our previous solar angle will be set to the current. And then we'll increment the tick mark. And then we wait 1 tick mark, and then we jump back to the beginning of the loop. So that's what's going on here. And the sun is coming up. We still have to wait for midnight to see how many tick marks we got. Now again, I exported the code to my IC not anywhere near midnight, which means that the tick marks that we see here will not be correct. The next step we'll go over is we want to see what's the difference in tick marks. I mean, obviously, you know, we initialized our tick marks with just 0 and not at midnight, but that will get reset again at midnight. So we have to wait 1 more full day for the clock to be properly synchronized. So basically, at maximum 2 days. If you exported the code just after midnight, then you have to wait 2 days for the clock to be properly synchronized. And beyond synchronizing the clock, we will also scale it. So let's say you want to speed up the daytime, or you want to slow it down. We want our clock to automatically adjust to that, right? So so this clock that I want to design here is going to automatically detect the length of the day, and it will automatically adjust the hour and the minute accordingly. But again, it takes up to 2 days for the clock to update its settings. Now what I could do, I could change the day length. This will make things faster for us so you don't have to wait out of boredom. Let's go ahead and leave. Should have thought about this in the beginning. Let's make it 0.3. I don't want it to go too fast. Let's go ahead and reset this for now. And I do need to take care of something real quick, so I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. And it looks like we detected midnight. So now with this number, after 2 midnights, this number should represent the length of each day in terms of tick marks. And so we can use that information to scale our hours. So let's go ahead and do that. Also, we do not want to be dividing by 0. At some point, we might end up dividing by 0. So let's create a failsafe. Call this clock enable 3. And I want to look for the right jump condition. BNEZ. Branch to line B if A is not equal to 0. We'll worry about this a little bit. All right, so when we detect our day, or sorry, our midnight, we want to use this number to scale. So let's see here. And this goes from negative 180 to 180. So let's go ahead and properly adjust our solar angle. Or actually, we don't need to adjust our solar angle so much. But what we will use is the current tick and convert that into hours. And so we know there are 24 hours in a day. And there are right now 126 ticks in a day. So what we'll do is we will multiply our number of ticks by the, let's see here. I need to keep track of that actually. Alias. It's called ticks in a day. For lack of a better term, ticks in a day, or ticks per day is better. Ticks per day. And so we will do this, R3. We will set ticks per day is equal to R0. And then we will reset R0. And then in our update, we will update our clock according to hour. So we're going to update hour. Or first we need to perform some math. LES hours for LES minutes R5. Should really be more specific here. Display minutes and display hours. There we go. Now we will do some math here. We will multiply, let's see, R4 hours, R4. We will multiply our number of ticks by 24. And then we also want to truncate that. Or, sorry, we need to divide. We need to then divide R4 by our number of ticks per day. So this is R4 divided by R3. Let's give some labels here. Calculate hour. Multiply by 24 hours. Divide by ticks per day. Then we want to update display hour. We want to update the setting to R4. So we're going to show hours. We no longer need this guy. We also want to truncate, so we're only displaying hours and not some decimal. I'm not sure, I don't remember what the code was for the truncate. I think it's trunk. Yeah, I'm going to truncate R4. Just want to make sure I got this right. Just saw it. QRSTUV, truncate. Okay, and that should do it. So now we will show the hour. Let's export this, and it's going to reset our day. So unfortunately, we have to wait past midnight twice again. And if all goes well, this will show us our hour, our equivalent hour. And starting at midnight, it should count up from 0 all the way towards 24. Once we find that this works, then we can work on our minutes next. At least we know now that there are 718 tick marks in a day. When the orbit period is set to 0.3. So we'll just wait for midnight. And again, the first midnight is not going to scale our hours just yet. We have to wait for 2 midnights. Looks like we just hit midnight. Seems to be working, but it's not properly scaled yet. So let's go ahead and start working on our minutes. Okay, here. So we got calculate minute. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. So we will do something very similar here. 1440. 440 minutes. We want to, oh, this is not right. This must be R5. We also want to divide by the number of ticks per day. And likewise, we will truncate. But there's one more thing we need to do, and that is a modulo. So mod 60. This should work. So this is not right. So let's go ahead and, oh, I forgot. Let's display our minutes also. All right, so they're both, this is nan. It should be showing infinity, not nan. Oh, this should be 24, not 60. I guess we'll see if it's working after midnight. I forgot to. Actually, I don't need to initialize my registers for R4 and R5. So just as a reminder, the data port, the daylight sensor needs to face north. And again, we have to wait a full day for the clock to be properly scaled. Oh, and by the way, you notice that the sensor is facing up. And for your solar tracking, your horizontal sensor normally faces down, right? So if you want the clock to work off of your solar tracking daylight sensor, which faces down, then all you have to do, you see this, where is that at? Here it is, BLE, or branching, this line here, branch if R2 is less than or equal to R1, all you have to do is swap R1 and R2. Again, because R2 is our current angle and R1 is our previous angle. And since our solar angle here increases more negative as the day progresses, flipping it upside down makes it progress more positive. And so our midnight will take place when when we have a sudden drop, when our horizontal angle drops from 180 to negative 180. So that's all you have to do is swap R1 and R2. And if you get it wrong, the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to see the clock totally messed up. As in your day length, your ticks per day, is going to constantly being updated. Now we do not have 56 hours in a day. It's only showing that because I exported the code near midnight or approaching midnight. And so the code detects the length of the day to be much shorter than it really is. So all we have to do is wait for 2 midnights for the clock to update. Come to think about it, I think I have a little boo-boo with this. We'll see. We'll see. I just feel like I did not do the math right. Multiplying by 1,440 minutes in a day, and then we divide by the number of ticks per day. Truncate the decimal, and we perform a modulo. The modulo looks at what happens if we divide by 24. If we divide by 24, 1,440 divided by 24 is 60. And so we get the remainder. The minutes seem a little off. It should be approaching 59, right? It's only going up to 23. Okay. So I know I did something wrong here. It's only going to 23. Yeah, this is not right. Yeah, I thought about using the Activate. The problem with Activate is if you have shadows. The shadows might trigger the Activate several times in a day. Whereas the solar angle is always there, day and night, regardless of shadows. It does not care about shadows. I have an idea, just for testing purposes. Let's set this to 700 by default. I think this is supposed to be 60. And so this should count up to 60. All right, this is more like it. See, this is what it's supposed to look like. So if you know how many tick marks are in the day that you're choosing, you can put that right here. Otherwise, this will give an update. So unfortunately, I have to wait for midnight again. Now again, if you don't care about accuracy, you could convert maybe only on Europa. You might be able to get away with converting horizontal angle into hours and minutes, but it's not very accurate. It will definitely not work on the moon. So the advantage, besides just having activate trigger our synchronization, another problem with that is that as long as the sun is shining on the sensor, the activate is always going to be 1. And so you could say, well, when it switches from 0 to 1, that's our detection. The advantage of using horizontal angle is that it's always updating all day long, all night long, and as soon as midnight hits, the angle suddenly changes. And it only changes once. I mean the polarity, if you will. It suddenly changes from negative 180 to 180, or if you have the sensor facing down, it suddenly changes from 180 to negative 180. Did I say that right? Yeah, I did. So when the port is facing north and the face of the sensor is facing down, as you would normally use it, then the angle starts at negative 180 and goes up to positive 180 and then suddenly drops to negative 180 at midnight. All right, midnight is approaching. I think I got this right this time. And we shall witness a full 24-hour cycle with a minutes that goes only towards 60 minutes. All right, we hit midnight. Looks like every tick mark is 2 minutes. It's 1 o'clock. If our clock is correct, at 6 o'clock, the sun should come up. And unfortunately, if the power goes out, your clock is a little messed up. You gotta wait 2 days for it to fix itself. So it's going on 5 in the morning. And by 6 o'clock, the sun should peek out. Maybe 6:30 it'll peek out over the mountain. Oh, look at that. It's 6 o'clock and the sun came up. Again, this is the first time I'm making such a thing. And at 12 o'clock, the sun should be right overhead. It's going on 11. It's 12. It's noon. It's just past noon. Really seems like the clock is working. I'll go ahead and save this. What on earth? I already made something like that. Look at that. Huh. New things here. All right, let's call this 24-hour clock. It's almost dusk. 1800, the sun shall set. Oh my god, it's amazing. So now, you might be wondering, what if we want a 12-hour clock, as in AM, PM? That's going to be a little more tricky, but not too much more tricky. Here's how I would do it. I would do a mod, let's see, R4, I do a mod, let's see, 12. So we're going to do an AM PM, a 12-hour based clock. However, we have to keep in mind that in the afternoon, when it's past 12, it says 12 and not 0. So we have to offset by 1 hour. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to subtract one hour And then we're going to perform the modulo, and then we're going to add back the 1 hour. That way our clock shows 12 o'clock and not 0 o'clock. And we shall see. And unfortunately, I need to wait 2 days. Or if you want, let me save this again. Let's call this 12-hour clock. I'm going to speed up the day because we've already proven that the minutes work. Let's go to 0.1, fastest possible. All right. You can see our hours actually go to 12 o'clock and not 0 o'clock. Because the 24-hour based clock, the 24-hour clock does not count to 24. It counts to 2300. And at midnight, it's balls. That's what we call it in the military. It's called balls. But it's 0. It's 0000. But the 12-hour clock does not have 0 o'clock. It has 12 o'clock. And as you can see, it's working. We subtract 1 and then do the modulo and then add 1 again. Do need to rename this. See, this is the 12-hour clock. And I want to save this as such, 12. I'm getting errors from, oh, look at that. Let's look at that again. Backspace does not work in here. Right. Okay, so we have a 12-hour based clock. Doesn't seem to be working. It doesn't seem to be synchronized properly. I'm not sure why. Maybe it hasn't been a full day yet. So at midnight, this should reset back to 0 or back to 1 o'clock-ish. There we go. Just hit midnight. So at 6 o'clock, sun should rise. There it is. And at 6 o'clock again, the sun should set. Yep, sunset. Now you'll notice that it did not set at exactly 6 o'clock, and the reason I think that happens is because my daytime, my sun orbit period, whatever it's called, is much too fast, and my clock only counts by 1 tick. That is 1 logic circuit tick mark, 1 yield. And so I would imagine that 1 day is not an exact number of tick marks. It's some fractional value. And there's nothing I can do about that here. Unless we count days. You can say, and maybe if we average out our number of tick marks, then we could get a more accurate estimation. If you really want to, I can do that. So we want a clock that self-calibrates. As time goes on, it gets more accurate. What do you think? Let's do it. So let's create a new variable here. Let's call this big ticks, R6. And we will also keep track of the number of days. Now these big ticks, they will add up over time. Okay, so we can make this count up to a week, and it will calibrate itself out to a week. So let's say big ticks, or we could say week ticks, R6, and then count our days, R7, initialize R6 as 0. And our number of days is 0. So here, let's see. Add our 6. I'm going to increment our 6. This is our big ticks. It's just called big ticks. I don't like weak ticks. But we're just going to keep track of 7 days. And so the clock will calibrate itself. And this is to account for tick marks that are not tick marks. This is to account for days that are not exact number of tick marks. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see. Why do I have 2 displays here? This is not supposed to be here anymore. There we go. All right. In fact, we don't even need this anymore. I think. No, we do. We do. We do. Let's make some notes here. Reset ticks. This is set ticks per day. But this is not accurate enough. So we want to do something a little more. We want to say that we want to do a mod. So R6. No, we don't want to do a mod, not just yet. Okay, so we are updating the number of big tick marks. Oh, and we also need to update our days. So let's update using a mod. 7 is our 7/7. So every 7 days, our day count resets back to 0. We should only reset our big ticks when our days get reset. So let's put that here. When R7 is equal to 0, I want here, let's see, LEZ. We might not have what I'm looking for. Oh, we do. BEQ0. When R7 is equal to 0, so we've just reset it. When R7 is equal to 0, then we also want to, when it's not equal to 0, we want to skip the next line. So we want to reset ticks here. I'm going to jump to reset ticks. All right, now there we go. When it's not equal to 0, in other words, if it's not the 0th day, then we do not want to reset our days. Well, I mean, sorry, we do not want to reset the big ticks. So R6 is 0. Reset big ticks when day is equal to 0. And then our ticks per day is not going to be R3, it's not going to be equal to R3. It's not going to be our maximum count. It's going to be our big ticks divided by our number of days. So we can change this to divide. R3 is equal to R6 divided by R7. This will calibrate our ticks per day. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down through the screen here. And if you want to copy this information, you can just slow down the video. Obviously, you cannot do it when I'm live streaming it, but later on, when the live stream is processed, and you can go back and watch it, you can go ahead and slow it down, and as I scroll through this, and you can copy it and try for yourself. So it looks a little complicated, but again, we built this up piece by piece using reason, using logical considerations. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm this. Let's export this. Actually, I've been thinking that this might not be right. Yeah, this is not going to work. We need to actually count up to 7 days, including the 7th day, not 0 days. So I can't use this mod here. What I will do is use a standard reset. Let's see here. This is when we're resetting. Let's put this here. Want to do a BQ when R7 is equal to 7. We want to reset our ticks. Or, sorry, we do not want to reset our ticks. So it's going to be BNE. Or rather, it's less than BLT. So when it's less than 7, we're going to jump. We're going to skip these 2 lines. When our number of days equals 7, then we will reset. But until then, we will just continue to set our ticks per day. So double check this. Okay, so I'm dividing big ticks. So big ticks divided by number of days. Days get updated at the end here. I think this is correct now. So this will start counting the days starting from 1 day all the way to 7 days instead of 0 days to 6 days. All right, now let's just wait. And after several days, the clock should be accurate enough that the sun will rise at exactly 6 o'clock and it will set at exactly 6 o'clock. I really hope I got that right. It's stuck at 12 hours. It's stuck at 12 o'clock. It just seems like it's constantly resetting, so I just wanted to make sure that that's simply because it hasn't started calculating and not because my logical thing here is wrong. BLT. So branch down here if the number of days is less than 7. This should work. Nope, something's wrong. What did I do wrong here? So R6 divided by R7. R3 was ticks per day. All right, looks like I got to do a little bit of troubleshooting here. I'm going to comment these lines out. And keep track of the number of days here. Then the number of tick marks. Actually, let's just put these both at the beginning of the loop. That's the, okay, so number of days is R6. No, that's the big ticks. R7 is the number of days. So at midnight, that should change to 1. And if it doesn't, then something's going on. Oh, I know what I'm missing. I forgot to increment my days. That's what I'm missing. So let's go ahead and do that. Right. here. R7, we're going to increment that by 1. So the increment day, increment big ticks, increment little ticks. Now it should work. It just hit midnight, so we're on day 1. It's still not going to be very accurate because these big ticks still include the very first day. So what it needs to do is it needs to actually wait until my days equals 2 before beginning the calculation. So this is where I wanted to put the enable. So let's create an alias, enable clock, and call it R8. And this will start out as 0, and it does not calculate our ticks per day until enable clock is set to 1. Or rather, until enable clock is set to 2, I think is a better deal. Well, set to 1. Okay. So when days equals 2, then we begin calculating. So I'm going to leave the ticks as they are. Let's see here. So what I want this to do is that this register turns on after 2 midnights, after the first 2 midnights. And then it just stays on from that point forward. So we want to do branching here. Let's see here. Calculate ticks per day. We only calculate ticks per day after the first 2 days. Sorry, after the first 2 midnights. So we're going to do we're going to choose this one here, BGE. Let's see here. No. Well, yeah. This will work. BGE if branch the line C if A is greater than B. So we're going to branch down here if let's see here. This is tough stuff. You probably already figured out that programming this stuff is quite tricky. We're going to branch, let's see if this is equal to what is, let's see, not equal to 0. It's equal to 0. Okay, so B and Z, B and easy. Branch down here if R8 is not equal to 0. Calculate ticks per day. All right. So in this block here, this is where we will keep track of the first day. So BNEZ branch down here if R8 is not equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, keep going down here. So if our clock is not enabled yet, we will look at the number of days. And I think this is SEQ is what I want to use next. Can't remember if I'm going to be using the right one here. SEQ is what? Here we are. Oh, SGE. That's what we want. SGE. We want to set R8 equal to 1 if A is greater than or equal to B. And so this is where we look at the day. R7 is our days. So if R7 is greater than or equal to 2, we will turn on our clock. And then we also need to reset. We also need to reset our days. And we want to reset our tick mark. first days is greater than or equal to 2. All right. So what's going on here in this block is when R8 is not equal to 0, that is, once our clock is enabled, we'll skip these 3 lines and calculate our time as usual. But in the very beginning, when our clock is not enabled, when R8 is equal to 0, we're going to look at this line here when our number of days is greater than or equal to 2, then we're going to enable our clock and we're going to reset our big ticks, and we're also going to reset the number of days back to 0, because at that point we started, see, at this point we're synchronized to our days. What we could do is just make this a 1, so we start synchronizing after the first midnight. So I can put a note here, start synchronizing after first midnight. I kind of initially wanted it to be 2 days, but I realized that's redundant. This is a 12-hour clock. It automatically calibrates itself because it recalculates the number of ticks per day over the course of 1 week. And so we might end up with a decimal number of tick marks. So we do not have whole number of ticks. We have a fractional value of ticks per day. And it could be much more accurate than the way we were doing it the first time. So I just want to go through these line by line. Give you some time to copy it if you want. I did forget to get rid of these lines. However, I forgot to uncomment these. No, I didn't want to delete that. What the heck? There we go. I want to uncomment that. All right, so one more time, here's the lines. Line 0 through 23. You can pause the video if you need to copy it. Then here's line 23 through 46. Line 46 and on. So now this should be displaying the hour and the minute. And it will start synchronizing at midnight. So for now, we'll just wait. I think after the first midnight, it should display infinity. Or maybe not. Okay. It seems to be working. So at 6 o'clock, the sun should rise, but it's counting a little early. So something is wrong, and I'm not sure what. let's go ahead and export that. All right, so as you saw, that I exported the code before it hit midnight. The clock crossed over midnight, which means that our clock should be enabled right now. But it's calculating as 0 divided by 0. If this doesn't work, we could always go back to the previous, more simple code. This is a little bit on the complicated side. So at midnight, we should display a 12 o'clock. There it is. And by 6 o'clock, if my code is working as intended, the sun should rise at 6 o'clock. And it worked. I think we are successful here. And so this is a self-calibrating clock. Every week, every game week, it will give you a more accurate time. Actually, every day it will give you a slightly more accurate time than the previous day. So at 6 o'clock, it should set again. It probably will not set exactly 6 o'clock. So it sets around 5:30, 5:45. So we're off by 15 minutes at sunset. But that should fix itself as the days go by. We should have more accurate timekeeping. So this should be slightly more accurate than the previous day. It's hard to tell with that mountain in the way. But at sunset, we shall see. Ooh. Not much different. The sun is still setting a little too early. It's only been 2 days. If we want to further, increase the range at which it keeps track of days, we can set this to, let's say, 30. So over the course of a month, we can calibrate our clock, automatically calibrate the clock over the course of a month. The sunrise seems to be quite accurate. It's the sunset that seems to be a little off. Not sure why that is. Now, technically, we can actually keep track of the week. If you want to track the week, all you have to do is do this display thing for R6. Oh, will the sun set? It seems to be slightly more accurate that time. It appeared that the sun set about 5:50, a little bit past 5:50. So I think over the course of several more days, it will become more accurate. So our 12-hour clock is almost identical to our 24-hour clock. The only thing I'll have to do is... What the heck is going on here? C-add? No. Self C-add? No. Oh my god. Where did that come from? All right. I think this is going to be it. Not sure why that's counting. All right, so it should fix itself by midnight, I hope. Seems like it's just displaying the tick marks. Okay, something's wrong here. I hope there's not a bug in the game. I don't know where that C ad came from. This is incredible. It keeps going up and up and up and up. All right, let's go through this again. Increment day. It's not equal to 0. Calculate ticks per day. Otherwise, it's greater than, if the number of days is greater than or equal to 7, start synchronizing and reset. Then calculate ticks per day. There's no reason why there should be a problem. Something is fishy. Wasn't doing this before. Oh my god, it's back. Something got deleted here. It's the finicky typing in this game that's just messes things up. Calculate hour, but I never displayed hour. Okay, this is supposed to be R4. Okay, it just hit midnight. Don't know why. Oh, that's why. Display hour. Export. Okay, now it should be working. What a doozy. You gotta be careful when you're typing in this IC editor. Also, if you're changing a name to your code, I've discovered not too far in the past that when you're hitting backspace, it ends up deleting lines of code. That might be what happened when I was renaming my code. Hitting backspace ended up deleting lines of code. I think that's what happened. So at all costs, avoid hitting backspace when you're naming your code. Sun came up at 7:45. I think it's a calibration issue. All right, it hit midnight the second time. It's still counting awfully fast. All right, we shall see. 6 o'clock. Will the sun come up? Seems like it came up a little late. And then we need to look at sunset. See, it hit midnight. It seems to hit midnight twice there. Let's see if the sun comes up on time. Nope. A little late again. Why is it late? Let's reset our clock. But the sun is up. Why is it counting? I mean, why? I should be heading to bed here soon. As soon as I figure out that I did this correctly, I'm going to go to sleep. Something is off here and I can't figure out what it is. Again, worst case scenario, I can just go back to the original clock. Sun is coming up late again. This is irritating. What if we reset all of these? This might be the missing link here. Let's try it. So at midnight we should get a nan. We should have nothing displayed at midnight. And then it will start displaying the next midnight. And there's midnight. Everything is reset. And at this midnight, the clock should start displaying. And it should be proper this time. And at 6 o'clock, the sun should come up. I got it this time. And at 6 o'clock, the sun should set. We're very close to 6 o'clock. And as the days go on, the clock will get more accurate. So it's not only a synchronizing clock, it's a self-calibrating clock. Goes 6 o'clock. $5:45-ish. We saw that last time, and we concluded that it happens that way because the day length at this speed is not an exact number of tick marks. There are some tick marks that are lost. And so the code detects the length of one day to be less tick marks than it really is. Or maybe more tick marks than it really is. It's rounded off, and because it's rounded, yeah, so we're missing a fraction of a tick mark. And so the calculation, the error adds up over the course of 100 tick marks or so. And so we're off by a few minutes by the time the sun sets. However, if we count up the number of tick marks over the course of 2 days, then we get a slightly more accurate calculation. And the code is made right now so that it estimates the number of tick marks over the course of 7 days. And after 7 days, then it resets itself. So it looked like 554 is when the sun set. The sun appeared to set 1 tick mark too early. Maybe after the 3rd day it will set right on time, or maybe a half a tick mark too early. We'll see. If this all works out, I'm going to bed. And I'll scroll through the code one more time for your convenience in case you want to copy it. I don't expect you to copy it during the live stream, but maybe later on, once the video is processed, you can pause it. And now let's wait for sunset again. Or let's go a little higher. Up here, where it's a little easier to see. Right. Yeah, it's still about one tick mark too early. But I think it's okay. All right. Scrolling through this slowly. And again, if the sensor is facing down, you want to swap these two numbers. You want to swap R2 with R1 and make it if R1 is less than or equal to R2. And if you want to calibrate the clock accuracy over the course of, let's say, 30 days, change this number to a 30. If you want to go back to a 24-hour clock, you just delete these three lines here. You delete the shift, delete the mod, and the shift again. You want to delete these three lines to go back to a 24-hour clock. Everything else should stay the same. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. I hope I did not bore you to death. And we will end with the sunset one more time. 5:52. It's still kind of early. Alright, so that's it for today. Maybe I'll see you on the next one.